emisión.net.
Hello again and welcome to Letter from England, broadcasting for AC Press and the Spanish Evangelical Alliance. Who'd be a parent? Well, David Solá is an evangelical Christian and also a psychologist. He's written several books about bringing up children, books which have proved very popular on the secular market as well as the Christian outlets. Some of his latest titles include Successful Learning, Upbringing Without Abuse, and This Teenager Needs Different Parents. Perhaps parents themselves have thought that on some occasions. Well, Solá argues that teenagers who are unmotivated and spoilt and who don't place any value on anything are actually weak-willed. He puts the blame for this on a variety of factors, including social changes as promoted in the media and lived out in the classroom, and parental inertia when faced with the new tolerance, as he calls it. They let too much go, with the consequent loss of values. As he says, there is plenty of information on how to bring up children, but little time to learn it. And the problems for parents are coping with the changes that have come in and affect their children's behaviour. They have little time to learn in the busyness of their own lives on how to deal with these changes. Solá adds that teenagers today think they should be rewarded for every effort they make, and that turns them into demanding despots, inverting the role of parents and children. He says he sees this situation frequently at his surgery, where parents often feel at a loss as to how to deal with the situation, as no one has ever taught them how. He says in the same way as you teach someone to drive, a family is much more important than a car. Well, two extremes are often seen as reactions to this impasse. Excessive tolerance, which allows virtually everything, or extreme strictness and even aggression against children. And it's especially true, Solá says, when parents try to sort out their children too late in the day. So when should such training begin? Well, someone has said that in the case of children as early as possible, and in the case of parents about 20 years before they had children. The psychologist adds that many problems with children are actually their parents' problems. But an important part of raising children is also to teach them to be responsible for their own actions. Solá says the so-called golden age of parental authority, if such an age ever existed, was strong on instruction, but not on feeling the importance of values. Children were told what they could and could not do, but they weren't taught, he says, to appreciate the importance of the values inculcated. He argues that they must be persuaded by the idea and commit themselves to it. But for this to happen, parents must possess the values they wish to transmit. And when parents change positively, their children often follow. Yet the bottom line must remain the authority of the parents, and he says without this principle, it is impossible to train them. If children think the decision of their parents is optional, he says, we're lost. Parents will end up submitting to their children's wishes. So is there any hope for parents? Well, if so, Solá, perhaps more controversially, rejects corporal punishment, also rejecting the claim by many Christians that there's actually biblical teaching to support it. He says people use 4 or 5 verses on which to build a whole theory of upbringing, and in my opinion this is ridiculous. And he tries to argue that if physical punishment against an adult is brutality, then it is also against a child. The Bible, he says, cannot be used to justify this kind of punishment. Well, many Christians will disagree with that, especially because the Bible seems pretty clear that corporal punishment against a child is not only acceptable, but in certain situations wise. And of course it's not the only, nor even the principal way of maintaining parental authority, but it is one of them. A personal relationship between parents and children, which involves putting in time and effort, of course, is key. And parents need to understand why a child behaves as he or she does. In the case of teenagers, are they reacting in an exaggerated fashion to gain attention, or because they're trying to push the boundaries to see how far they can get? In this respect, tragic news has come this week, and you can also read about it in our news bulletin, that in the 4 years from 2000 to 2004, the number of official complaints made by parents to the police regarding violence or threats against them by their own children has increased 8-fold. And this tragic situation is just perhaps the tip of the iceberg of tensions which exist between families as authority and even relationship of any kind breaks down between parents and children, and how we need to get back to biblical teaching of respecting one's parents, and of parents honouring their children, and of nurturing them in a relationship and in a home of love, and where God's word is honoured, taught and modelled by the parents. And our society needs strong Christian families to be role models for others more than ever before. Well, thank you for listening again to Letter from England, broadcasting on emission.net and to the website protestantedigital.com. Goodbye for now.
Emisión.net